Hello, I'm Christine Fang, your course coordinator for the course 7004, Performance Measurement, Assessment, and Program Evaluation. What you're about to see now is the online learning session on driving organization performance and measuring organization health. Actually, this session is a recorded forum presentation organized by the faculty's Excel 3 project. You can also go online to look at this forum too. There are two parts to this learning session. Each part will be around 25 to 30 minutes, and I will do some curation in between the two parts. You have to complete a worksheet after viewing this session, and the worksheet will be counted as part of your assessment. So review carefully, and the worksheet is supposed to help you to reflect on what you have viewed in the session. Well, I'll go to the first session. It is a sharing by the Executive Director of the Hong Kong Federation of Youth Groups. Some of you may know, but maybe most of you don't know who are not from Hong Kong. Hong Kong Federation of Youth Groups is one of the leading NGOs here. They are at the helm of driving youth services and development in the past decades in Hong Kong. It has started as a small organization running basically government-funded youth service and has now become a huge nonprofit sector, which includes 1 secondary school, 1 primary school, 3 kindergartens, and over 22 youth centers throughout the districts. So Dr. Rosanna Wong, who has been leading this organization, will share with you the practice wisdom behind how she sees as the key drivers for superior organization performance. Please look at this presentation carefully. You should note that what she has said is actually what she has practiced, and she has put practice into a reality of real, sustained, high-impact organization performance in the past 40 years.
Very simple. I use 5 words to share with you how I see an organization is tick and how an organization can have innovation and growth. The first is A, the second is B, C, D, and E. If you remember this A, B, C, D, E, then you're done, in my view. Now, the first word I want to talk about, I see the importance of a non-profit sector, of a non-profit organizations, is the word accountability. Now, if an organization, particularly if they're non-profit, we're not a listed company, unlike in the market, where you need to be accountable to your shareholders. But we do have client responsibility and accountability. We do have government accountability. We do have financial accountability. We have all that even in the private sector has. Although we are not sort of required as such, just like a listed company in the private sector. So the word accountability, in my view, is extremely important for an organization to understand. What are we here for? Now, this is a very core element in an organization. If everybody, including the leader, the staff, as well as every individual, including the boards and committees, who need to understand, why are we here for? The money is definitely come from everywhere, particularly for non-profit sector. It comes from the clients. It comes from the government. It comes from the public sector. So you need to build in an organization a strong sense of responsibility. Now, when I use the word accountability, I tell you with the word responsibility. Now, this responsibility from the very top up to the very lower end of the organization need to realize the importance of accountability. Not only the board, not only the CEO of the corporations or an organizations, but every staff need to understand the strong sense of accountability, in my view. If your organization have different views over the word accountability, or maybe you have very divided views over this, who should we be accountable to? Then you need to fix this before you develop your organizations. You need to fix it. You need to build consensus into which are our stakeholders that we need to be accountable to. In a private company, listed company, they're very clear. Of course, it's shareholders. But for us, is it the government? Is it the donors? Or is it the client? In my organization, I take a long time to build this consensus, so that everybody understand in their mind, whatever we do, whatever we deliver, whatever we say, we know who are our stakeholders. Who should we accountable to? Just like our boss, we need to know, it's not only the board is our boss. A lot of NGOs thought that the board is our boss. Oh, more than that. If the board is your boss, you're wrong, totally. You're not totally wrong, but I mean, if you only look at the board, I don't think that this is adequate. You always find out with the public. Your responsibility lies more than you're accountable to your CEO or even to your board. The most important, in my view, in terms of accountability, is client responsibility. And this is why we're here for. When I work for young people, I know that who's my boss. If somebody asks me, who's your boss? I said, young people are my boss, not the board directly. Although, from management point of view, I need to be accountable to my board. Of course, I need to be accountable. But to me, in my heart, I always said that our clients are extremely important, just like our shareholders. If they're not happy, we're not doing a good job. If they still have a lot of problems, we're not doing a good job. So this is even more complicated in the entire accountability arena than in the private sector, I tell you. The private sector is very clear, the shareholders. But in the non-profit sector, we mean more than our shareholders. We have several areas of accountability that if you miss it, you miss it. If you get it right, in every part of your organization, you understand who are you accountable to. Don't get worried if you have several areas of accountability. And this is what the challenge of an NGO is. You need to know how to maneuver this whole world of responsibility and accountability. And this is, to me, is the first word I want to share. And if our organization to get it right, you have to make sure you understand who are you accountable to and where your responsibilities lies. Now the second word I use is B. B, I use it as belief. What do we stand for? Now for non-profit organizations, we hold on certain things that we do believe this is extremely important. Now when I use this belief, means even in your organization, I'm sure you have a vision statement. If you do not have a vision statement, at least you have something that will guide you, that your organizations will let people know what are you standing for. Now in my organization working for young people, I do believe that the role of my organization is to understand our young people better than anybody. We're able to support our young people whenever they're up and down. And we need to provide services to help young people, or even develop young people from different level of entry. Now, we do have certain things in our vision statement that we do believe that it's important to us. Now, an organization, don't underestimate the importance of pooling people together in the same belief. This is a driver. And this is an extremely important driver to drive an organization, that everybody coming to work in this organization share your belief and your vision. A lot of people underestimate this. They said, I come in for a job. That's all. I get paid. That's important. Why share vision? I can change job from one to the other. Of course, you have the right to change job. But what binds people together and glue people together is your vision, is your belief, particularly for non-profit. We don't have money to glue us. But what glue us is your belief to make it so. This is very powerful. That's why a lot of people said when I interview staff, I seldom interview staff now, only the senior one. When I interview a staff, I never ask the nitty-gritty details of where do you graduate, what is your hobby, and I never ask this question. I thought it's a waste of time. I only ask whether that person has the same wavelength and the same belief of my organization. If not, out you go. Don't stay. Even you are highly qualified. I don't need a highly qualified person as such. I need somebody who shares the vision and who are prepared to commit to that vision and belief. Otherwise, there's no, particularly for senior staff. If I promote somebody, if he or she cannot pass the test of whether you are looking at the same direction as I did, I'm not saying that you're not good, but you're not fit. And that's why the staff, the 10 person working around me, never changed. Because it's a commitment for life. It's a life commitment. Now for NGO, this is very powerful. The power comes from not salary. The power comes from the fact that we believe that what we are doing are the right thing, are the good things, and we're prepared to face any challenges for the sake of achieving what we want to achieve. This is very powerful, I tell you. If your organization is not yet ready to share that belief and vision, don't talk about performance. Don't talk about sustainable performance. No people, no performance. And if you want to look for a senior person, particularly senior leaders, if the mindset is different from you, I don't think that it works. So B is very important. It's a belief, particularly for senior leadership who drive the organization forward. So I share with you C. C is also important. I use the word culture. A lot of people said belief is something high up there. It's an iCloud thing. How are you going to put your belief on the ground and everybody will share this belief? To me, it's culture. Culture, you need to build an organization with a culture that fit your belief, that understand responsibility. Don't underestimate the importance that you always test your organization, whether there are values that build that culture that fit your organizations. If this is not yet done, you need to refresh it, and refresh it, so that everybody's blood is running the same way. For example, for my organizations, we have several cultures, several characteristics, which already built as part of the culture of my organization. First of all, everything is very grounded. In my organization, we don't talk things on the air. even though we're not very theoretical. You can talk a lot of things on the air, on iCloud, but at the end of the day, it's very grounded. You need to put things on the ground. Every day, if there is any concept or any innovative ideas, it cannot be put on the ground. It's no good. 好有地氣啊 This is our culture. Everybody, when being challenged and somebody giving ideas, immediately will be asked, how are you going to deliver? Another characteristic in my organization, we stress a lot of importance on communication, both internal and external communications. And I'm a strong believer of communications. If I have a concept, I want to lead the organization. The most challenging thing for me is to convince my staff. And to make sure that not only the leader is convinced, the staff is convinced, the volunteers are convinced, everybody is convinced. So as a CEO or even as a leader in your organizations, you need to have a lot of communication ability and believe that communication works. I always meet my senior staff, no matter what happens, once every 2 weeks. It's a must. I meet all my staff once in 3 months. It's a must. I meet all the in charge once in 3 months. Is a must. For 40 years, I've not changed this pattern. If I'm unable to convince my staff that this should be done, there's no point for me shouting around my ideas. Nobody helped me to put on the ground. So communication is a culture of my organization. Everybody communicate. Internal, we have the internet, we have external communications. Another culture in my organization, particularly for social worker. Social workers stress a lot of importance on process. Oh, process is superb. Very important. But never stress the importance of results. Now, but in my organization, I already built, later on I will share with you one of the practice I have, the importance of both process and results. We need to balance. Because our profession is very process-oriented profession. But sometimes too process, you get into, a trap of don't know what you're doing. When some people ask you, what have you done? They can't express, except I know that I have 30 cases, I have 40 cases, and I do this. But what are the impact that you create? How to measure your impact, they don't know. So I already built a culture that no matter what you do in the process, at the end of the day, I still need to see the results. There are a lot of culture, because of time, I can't share with you. You must have that culture already built into the blood of every individual. And I think this is important. And also, in an organization, nobody should claim credit all for what has been done by one person. It's a teamwork. Everybody get credit together. I think this is also important. So C to me is very important. Even if you have A, even if you have B, you don't have C that built in to become a practice, a culture of your organizations, no good. You can't get performance. Let's go to D. Now D to me, it's again very important. The more importance I put it at later. D is deliverables. Now deliverables, to me, it's really the real meat of everything. If I have A, if I have B, if I have C, then of course I look at execution, isn't it? Execution is extremely important, and so that whatever we think, whatever we believe, whatever we think this vision should be, it's really put on the ground and be seen by people, and you really create impact for the society. Now this is difficult, particularly for a non-profit organization, in social services in particular. We do have a lot of forms to fill in, how many statistics we have, how many people attend the event, and so on and so forth. But this, to me, is not enough. Filling statistics, it's only something that what you have done, and you just fill in and tell people what you have done. Now, to me, that this is still, not a very good way of looking at a service that we provide in a very comprehensive manner. And therefore, because we want to ask for results to staff is, this is the most challenging part. So I have introduced, the whole concept about planning and evaluation. Now, planning and evaluation is a complicated exercise, which I've done for many years for my organizations, because I study planning for my graduate school. So I'm a strong believer that planning is extremely important, and before you're able to deliver, and then you see results. But for social workers to understand why planning is needed, because usually they do not plan. You know why they do not plan? Because it depends very much on how much the government give it to them. You see, even if they plan, they want more, the government did not give it to them, so they cannot have anything to do. And that's why they always feel that planning is lousy. We just depend on how government give you $1 million, you spend $1 million. This is always the practice of the NGO in the past. Maybe some of the NGO now is doing the same. 睇餸食飯啊. And this is always an NGO a very bad practice. It's like a government give you 5 million, you spend 5 million. You are a spender. You are not a planner. You know how to spend, of course, because government asks you for the account, and then you give it to them. But if you do it this way, you always only get $5 million. I always tell my staff, if government give you 5 million, you spend 5 million, your life is just 5 million. But if you want 10 million, then you need to plan ahead for the 10 million, even though government give you 5 million. Government will not give you less, even if you plan for 10, I said. Is that right? And that's why a lot of people doesn't like the lump sum grant. I'm the first one to support the lump sum grant. You know why? Lump sum grant give me the flexibility and give me that room for maneuvering, so that government can continue to give me 100 million, 20 million, 30 million. They will never, because everybody get the same. So if I want to get more than what the government want me to do, I need to plan. I need to know what exactly I want before I can convince other donors to give it to me. So ever since a lump sum grant is implanted in Hong Kong, actually my budget has threefold increased. If I continue to be under the discretionary grant, even though government give me 100% subvention, but I can still stand as it is. So planning become very important. So I encourage staff to think big. Think big. Don't worry about money. I said that if you think big, money will follow. If you do not think big, you think small, money will just as it is. So the entire organization suddenly think big. Sometimes very big, too big. I need to narrow them down. Too big. Doesn't matter. I always encourage big things. If you think big, you have big, wide shoulder to stand. If you do not think big, they're always just, nitty-gritty things. So my organization in the past years and years, when we start doing the planning, they have the courage to think bigger. I always encourage them, don't worry about the money. Let me have the ideas and the need of the community. Because people need to know the need of the community. And this is your client responsibility. So I start planning about 10, 15 years ago. It was a nightmare, I tell you. Staff find it very difficult to plan. But to cut the story short, I started off with incremental planning. You know what's incremental planning? Model planning. Last year, how much you do, this year, how much you do, and next year, how much you do. Very easy planning. That's incremental planning. But now I do more than increment. I do strategic planning. I do focus planning. So every year I publish a planning document. I share with other organizations too. And in every planning, I have indicator, I have KPI, I have result being measured, and I have evaluations. I have everything just like a listed company in the private sector. Even some of the private corporation ask my book and see how I do it, because I have a formula called the lighting formula. I use the red light, the green light, and the yellow light. If organization within, the control of my units, if they get green light every month in their statistics and KPI, they're done, they're okay. If they get red light, they need to see me. If they have yellow light, I can swallow for 1 month. You see, it's everything planned just like you manage in organizations. From the goals, setting of goals, working on the mission, working on the strategy, and working out the budget, and working out the KPI, and measuring performances, all in one go. I started this cycle just like in the private sector when they start the budget planning. The same thing. And then every statistics I use, I will not collect it unless I use it. In an organization, particularly government, always asks us for so many statistics, and they never use it. And spend a lot of time collecting data, but not using data. All my big data that I collect, I use it, I share it, and I talk about it, I criticize it, and I debate over it. So that staff find it useful to collect data and use the data to measure performance. Because of time, I can't share with you anymore on the D. But deliverables, a very practical step of managing an organization. And you need to handle that with fairness and transparency. Transparency is extremely important. I never want, other people feel that I'm not fair to other owners. So every benchmark that we set apply to everybody. It's very transparent. You can go to the intranet, you can see the results of your unit. Just like a listed company. They also need quarterly reporting, isn't it? They also need transparency to the shareholders. The same thing. We can do exactly what the private sector is doing. No difficulties, in my view. Well, let me go to E because of time. This is very important. It's excitement. Isn't that exciting? How can an organization get excitement? Now, to me, this is very important. You want staff to come to your organization to work with joy, isn't it? You don't want staff to come to you just like they're suffering every day. I don't like people who suffer. They always said that, why is it you work for 40 years, you never feel bored? I never feel bored. I tell everybody whenever I wake up, I woke up and then I open my eyes, I want to go to work. I never have one day that I feel bored. So you need to build an excitement in your organization, that everybody feel excited, doing something that they cannot do, doing something they never think they would do. Now, this is what a leader always needs to be aware of. If your organization is getting, particularly some of the staff or some of the unit, getting very bored, no innovation, no creativity, every day doing the same thing, then you better have a look at it. They're not performing. They're not performing at all. Even though a unit or some of the staff, they think big, they get excited, even though they may not be performing too, but at least they have the energy to think. And even trying their best, or trying the effort to change. Particularly an organization like me, is working for young people. It changes every day. If you stay put, you don't change, out you go. You have to have open-minded, you have to be very open-minded, and you need to be very receptive to new ideas, and you need to change most of the time. So I have a practice in my organization that I always observe staff. If I feel that they're already fat more, they're a bit bored, then I always make sure that they get excited and trying to do some of the work that they would never think to. That's why Federation has a lot of big events, big program. You see, it's partly because it's for young people, It's also for my staff to get excited. They always complain at the beginning, wow, 又嚟一個, it's a big program. But I said, you tried it, have a taste of it. And I'm sure you will like it. And everybody at the end of the day, they come to me, oh, I can do it. Now, once they said that they can do it, they have excitement to do more. Now, this is very important for an organization. Maybe Joe may not agree with you from McKinsey, or even academic may not agree with. This is not in a book. It's not in a book. And they will not tell you. But an organization that get excited all the time, a good organization, I tell you. They never follow the book. They never follow what the seniors tell them. They excite from their angle, even from the unit. Everybody have new ideas coming up. This excitement is very important. I have no time to talk more about this. A is accountability. B is belief. C is cultured. D is deliverables. And the last one is excitement. If you're able, if an organization, in my view, able to fulfill this A, B, C, D, E, and I think this organization can drive performance. But if you cannot do A, B, C, D, E, then you go to F, then you failed. Isn't that right? But a lot of, academic or whatever will come to me and say that you don't talk about capabilities, you don't talk about learning, training. These are the things easy to do. Very easy, not difficult. The most difficult is this A, B, C, D, E. If you get fixed, this A, B, C, D, E, the rest about training, about leadership development, about money, about all these resolve. All these resolve, I tell you, these are technical things, not important to me. If I'm able to hold my staff to an extent that understand responsibility, that know what they believe in, what are the culture that they glue them together, and they also know how to deliver things, they get excited at the end of the day. Now, this is only my humble sharing with you. I cannot say that what I've done is right. That's why I don't have a speech, I don't have a text. I just share with you on this. But as I said, non-profit, it's getting more and more important nowadays. We're all very proud, and I'm very proud, working in this non-profit sector all my life. And I think that this is important, that we continue to build knowledge about non-profits and also build experience in the non-profits. Hong Kong is one of the cities that have done very well in non-profit services. Non-profit cover not only social services, hospital, schools, they're all non-profits. If we are able to build this non-profit big data, if we're able to build this social big data, I'm sure we can share our experiences to the rest of the world. So I congratulate again the Hong Kong University Faculty of Social Sciences for looking into this very important subject. And I'm sure that we have a lot of knowledge, and experience and expertise around this room. So keep on searching and building. And I'm sure that we will make a big contributions to Hong Kong. Thank you very much.
Hi, I hope you enjoyed Dr. Rosanna Wong's sharing and remember her A, B, C, D, E. I will go to introduce the second session now, which is a presentation by Mr. Joseph Ngai, the Director and Managing Partner of McKinsey & Company, Hong Kong office. Most of you may know McKinsey & Co. is among the world's leading global management consultants that have been advising most influential businesses and even governments. In analyzing high-performance organization, McKinsey advocates to go beyond looking at performance to look at organization health. By organization health, they mean the ability of an organization to align, to execute, and renew itself for sustained growth and achievement. Mr. Joe Ive from McKinsey Hong Kong has actually used the proprietary knowledge tool of organization health to help 8 NGOs in Hong Kong to assess the status of their organization health practices and outcomes of these 8 NGOs, which they see will impact on the organization performance. So listen to the presentation, and he will have a PowerPoint which you can see and read the assessment results of these 8 NGOs. If you want to look more into the tool, you go to the website of McKinsey & Company and you will have more information on the tool.
And so we started this analogy around performance versus health. What is performance? Performance is all the things you write in your annual report, including Rosanna's, right? How many people I've served this year, what are the metrics I've done, what are deliverables? I promised you last year I would do these things, right? Hong Kong U would write about how many, postgraduates, how many awards, how many PhDs, how many publications, and all that, right? Companies would write about our profits and all that. Right? So it's all performance. And performance in Hong Kong, because we are a very conscientious people, right? We're actually very, very hardworking. So we're actually very, very good in performance. Even education. Look at education, right? Any global rankings of Hong Kong, including PISA and other relevant metric, Hong Kong is always actually quite up top, right? When you go into the schools and ask people, then they feel, it's not doing that well, right? And what is it? It's health. Okay, so we started this whole discussion and whole, development, thinking about performance versus health, right? So when you go back home, think about your performance and your health, okay? And I think that you will actually start appreciating a little bit around how do we work on health, right? What is it that why do we not look at health, right? Give you one more analogy before I go in here. I don't know whether you're soccer or football fans, right? The analogy is like, Manchester United in the final years of glory, okay? Aging people, Ryan Giggs, Van Persie, all the people in the late 20s, early 30s, right? Last glory, right? The following year, we all know what happened, right? Performance versus health, right? Whereas you have like young people, right? Young players coming up, your whole bench is filled with 19, 20 years old who are dying to come onto the pitch, right? That's a healthy football club coming through, right? So it's quite interesting as you think about this. Think about the companies you're in. Think about university. Think about people who are around, and how do we think about it? Anyway, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. So we started this whole journey thinking about how to measure this, because we think that companies are not very good in measuring health. Okay, so what is it? How can you measure health? And we came up with this thing called Organization Health Index. We call it OHI. That is sort of our proprietary tool to think about how does one put a score or a framework around thinking about organization health. Yeah, and there are plenty of theories behind it. I won't bore you with it. But what we ended up with, okay, are 9 boxes. Right? Now I'll introduce that to you. So Rosanna had A, B, C, D, E. Mine's a little bit more complicated, okay? Because we need to make a bit more money, so we need to have a bit more stuff, okay? So we have 9 boxes, okay? So the first one are the 3 on the center, which is called alignment. Alignment, right? There are 3 boxes in alignment. It's direction, it's leadership, and it's culture and climate, okay? I'm not going to go through each one of them, but just remember there are 9 boxes. 1 is around alignment, and there are 3 boxes. Okay. Wow, this is like... Okay. The other one is around execution, okay? So, and these are 4 boxes around here, and it's accountability, coordination and control. I'm glad I had one of Rosanna's thing here. Capabilities and motivation, okay? So 4 around here, right? And these are around what we call execution, okay? And there's also leadership, right? So leadership is in every one of them, right? And then we have the final one, which is renewal. Okay, and it's around external orientation, it's around innovation and learning, and also leadership, right? So if you add it all up, okay, this is my version of Rosanna's ABCDE. Is 9 boxes that is around alignment, around execution, and around renewal. It's a bit more complicated because people will pay us for it, but this is basically our framework around measuring and organizational health. Now, what we did with this framework is that in each one of these boxes, right, we actually had definitions, we had metrics, we had research around practices that people need to use to score on these, right? So anyway, I'll then run through an example of how we use this in the real life example, and then I'll take questions later. So how does the survey work, right? So just one more, for those of you who are academically inclined, we basically had, it's a self-administered survey around the 9 boxes and 150 questions, okay? And basically, if you score higher, distinctive, you're in the 85th percentile, and then superior, common, and not effective, right? So that's kind of how we scored people along the 9 dimensions, and that's our sort of definition of it. And we've conducted this with more than, at this stage, more than 300,000 people worldwide in all sorts of sectors, including the nonprofit sector. Okay, so this is a well-used tool for us to measure health. Okay, so why don't I get into the more interesting part? So this was in 2012, okay? We actually did this in Hong Kong. We took this survey and I said, okay, why don't we take it and try it in Hong Kong? So we took it to 8 NGOs in Hong Kong. These, some of you will know these, some of you won't know these, but these are all sorts of NGOs in Hong Kong, including, anyway, you see the logos here, okay? And within these NGOs, over 1,000 people participated, right? So what I'll show you is a result. And I'm glad the university is setting because you appreciate this. With 1,000 participants in this survey that participated in these. Okay. This is a summary result of 8 NGOs in Hong Kong, 1,000 staff participating in the 9 boxes. Okay, the number in each box, okay, is actually, if you want to look at it, a health score of how did these 8 organizations do in each one of these boxes. As you can appreciate, for each organization, their number will be different, okay? But I'm not going to show you, their own numbers because, they may not want to share them with you, right? But this is actually the summary. It's quite interesting. I think that it's actually quite interesting to think about, Hong Kong NGOs, because I think after 8 of them, 1,000 respondents, I think it's quite representative of actually the NGO sector in Hong Kong. Leadership actually scored 44%, right? Not a high number, not a high number. The highest number on the page, okay, is external orientation, accountability, right? And in that order, direction, motivation, you can argue 52 is not very high, right? And then when you get to leadership, capabilities, innovation, and coordination and control, the numbers get a lot lower. I'll show you a bit more, what these numbers mean. But this is actually what we saw right through these surveys. We also in the survey asked people a lot around their practices, right? So in each one of these 9 boxes, right, do you actually practice? Do you have any corporate practices that actually would help you to do better over them, right? And what we would say out of 37 practices, 6 out of them were effectively adopted by these organizations in Hong Kong today. What was also quite interesting is that we looked at the outcomes at different tenure levels, okay? So now we split the survey into people who were in the organizations more than 10 years, which was a staggering 442 people out of 1,000 people have been in the same organization for more than 10 years, okay? Less than 3 years was 300 ends, right? And 3 to 10 was 300, okay? And what was maybe not that surprising but interesting was that the longer you've been in an organization, the higher you would score yourself, okay? So if you ask people who have been more than 10 years in that organization, what do you think of the direction, right? There will be 60% would feel like it's quite good. Whereas if you go to the 3 to 10 years, right, only 49% would feel the same way, right? And so on and so forth, right? So it was quite interesting when you look at the senior management, right, or people who've been there for a lot longer, their 自我感覺良好 is actually quite strong, right? So that means that you feel quite good about yourself. You feel like you're, very accountable. You feel like your capability is quite strong. You feel like you're very motivated, right? You're like Rosanna, right? You feel like, oh, look what I'm doing, right? When you go to people who just enter into the NGO, right? They're quite motivated, right? They feel like quite strong direction. There are some comments here, right? But overall, it's still rather interesting. You were just there, right? Now, once you've been in there for 3 years, but not quite made it to the senior management, you're stuck, right? Everything is poor. Innovation, 31%, motivation, 48%, right? You're stuck in this no man's land, right? And when you think about it, I guess it's normal when you start to think about it, right? But it also thinks about if the sickest, right, or the most unhealthy people in the organization, right, is between 3 to 10 years, right, in all NGOs in Hong Kong. Okay, so they are very, very sick. Obviously, when you go into each organization, right, it tends to be slightly different as well, right? But, in overall, as you look at it, it's also quite interesting, right, when you look at it this way. Remember, these are all self-scored, okay? So this self-declared, okay? Yeah, and when you, there are lots and lots and lots and, okay, here. So let me give you a little flavor around when we did the survey, what actually were there, were some of their responses, right? So, so we asked questions, right, such as leaders in the organization, right, which is, say, their bosses, are steering the organization in the right direction. 51% of them would actually agree or strongly agree, okay? Now, 51%, you may think that's a high number, but actually that means that 49% of all people in Hong Kong NGOs do not agree with the statement that leaders in the organization are steering the organization in the right direction, right? It's actually, if back to Rosanna's hypothesis, that we are motivated by the vision and the direction, right? Her belief, okay? Half of them do not believe, right? That the leaders in Hong Kong's NGOs, in these 8, and I think it's a good cross-section, are actually not doing it, right? Which actually back to the notion of performance versus health. Remember, in the annual report, we're writing about all these great things that we're doing. When we ask them, do you think that leaders are leading us in the right direction, only half of them would agree with that statement. So in some ways, as I look into it, I thought that was actually rather low. Okay, I thought that actually in commercial organizations, I can deal with, okay, maybe I'm in the bank and I don't like that CEO, so whatever he says, but you're paying me, so that's okay, right? But in an NGO, when I don't even agree with the leadership and the direction I'm going, then what is there to work for, right? So I thought that was actually disappointingly low, right, for me actually looking at the NGOs. I'll give you some more examples. Rosanna talked about, the manager whom I report to strives to achieve consensus on decisions, okay? 55% of them actually agree with that statement, right? Which again is that 45% of them do not agree, right? That actually consensus was something that their superiors were actually trying to do. What was disappointing here was also number 12 here. The lowest number on the page, 28%. What was that question? Leaders in the organization, e.g. my boss, make high quality decisions. Only 28% of 1,000 people sample agree with that statement. Okay, in Hong Kong, NGOs. Okay. So when we did the survey actually in Cantonese, yeah, and so those of you who can read it can appreciate some of these comments. I'm not going to read them out. I think it's quite interesting, right, to read them. But actually, if I go into this whole, remember with 9 boxes, in the leadership box, I think that when they were writing about it, it was actually quite interesting. 高層應該誠實面對和應付，應該要改善地方，而不是逃避現實，以消極態度處理問題。Etc. Etc. Right? So it's very interesting, right? And it made for great reading as you think about it. Okay, I'll keep going. Direction, right? Direction was another one which I thought was, needed a bit more work on, right? And if I look at some of these lower percentage numbers, right? Rosanna talked a lot about shared vision. And I think, in her organization, she does a lot of work with doing that, right? But some of these numbers are extremely low, right? So, number 2, the organization's vision is communicated throughout the organization. Only 22% of all those surveyed agreed with that statement. Okay? This one, number 3, which I think is increasingly important, especially with the younger generation. What does it say? Management articulates a vision for the future of the organization that resonates with my personal value. Okay? 31% of those agree with that statement. Okay? Now, maybe in Hong Kong we are harsh graders, okay? The passing rate maybe is 50%, so they felt 40 is actually 俾面你, okay? But in many ways, I thought these numbers are actually quite disappointingly low in the NGO sector. Okay, I expected higher numbers.同工不單止要被通知機構的方向，更要了解在機構的大方向下自己的角色 etc. etc. Right? So you can see actually when you ask people what they actually felt around the vision, the articulation, the direction, the belief. Okay, these are some of the comments that were coming back. And by the way, I'm not picking the worst comments. Okay, these were comments that were most frequently articulated. Okay, so it was actually a highly scientific, sample, right, of most representative comments. Okay, I'll keep going. Otherwise, we'll go over time here. There are 9 boxes. I'm not going to go over every single box, okay? But one of the boxes was around culture, right? Rosanna talked about culture, right? Culture is extremely important, right? One of the ways that culture is actually quite important is around how open and trusting the organization is actually, with each other, right? So one of the areas that I focus a lot around is, employees are encouraged to provide honest feedback to one another, okay? And that was 46%, right, in the NGO. Okay? Creative and entrepreneurial. Right? I'll have another session on innovation, so I'll go over that a bit later. And only 45% of those who surveyed agreed that there is a good atmosphere within the organization. Okay? Now remember, these are 8 NGOs that have extremely impressive performance. Okay? But as we were administering a health check, right? These are the things that we're finding out. Okay, I'll keep going. Accountability is actually a strong point, right, for Hong Kong companies. I'll just show you some of the, sort of interesting ones. There is actually a lot around ownership, right? I don't know, we can discuss that later. One of the most important things that we found out was around actually whether employees within the organization have sufficient authority to make decisions, right? That's actually quite an important one, right? And it was 40% among those who agreed, right? And the lowest number on the page, right, was all around, whether the organization recognized performance results, right, that exceeded the personal obligations, the sense of ownership and belonging. Right? So these are all pretty important statements, right, around what actually were some of the areas that were a little bit less than ideal. There's also coordination and control. I'm not going to talk too much about this one. I think that this is really one where we do relatively well. The only one which I want to highlight, and it's very interesting, is number 2 here, right? Is the organization's performance feedback and review processes collect accurate information about employees' strengths, weaknesses, and potential. One of the most chronic challenges I see in NGOs today is that because we are less evaluation driven in terms of promotion and a lot of them, right? I think that it's actually quite interesting that we ask people, did you ever get a very honest feedback around what your weaknesses, strengths are, and get some very open dialogue around how you can get better? The answer actually for most of them is, I've never had one. Okay? I think we're very good at evaluating what you have done, right? We're much less open around how you can do it better. One more, which is I think is important, around motivation, right? So this one is actually quite low, and as you can imagine, one of the lowest numbers here, and these are now we're in the teens, okay? This is actually quite interesting. Financial incentives, right? Extremely low, right? well, you expect that, right? No one works in the service sector because of money. But look, I mean, these numbers are quite low, okay? So organizations offer top performers the most attractive career opportunities within the organization, 22%. The organization designs jobs to be as stimulating as possible. I need to change it into excitement, given the earlier conversation, 20%, okay? So again, I go back to, yes, we're very proud of the NGO sector in Hong Kong. Yes, we have lots of great traditions, okay? But if most of our employees are looking at what we're doing and having these kind of results in terms of whether they feel their job is exciting, stimulating, right, and enthusiastic, I think that we actually do have a longer-term health problem, right, around the sector. Innovation, and I wouldn't just point to the NGO sector, okay? In Hong Kong, in the commercial world, this is one of the lowest of the low, okay? I don't know how to describe it. It's just, it just doesn't exist, okay? Interestingly enough, as we talk to the organizations at the top, everyone thinks that they're being innovative, okay? Because they're doing new things, okay? Everyone at the bottom and the middle believe that that's just another marketing idea around something that's old, okay? So it's quite interesting as you think about, we're doing lots of new things. Here's my list of new initiatives this year. However, as you think about whether it's really innovative, whether it's really breaking traditions with the old, I think that assessment is a little bit harder. So I have to go to, the latter part of my presentation. So as you look into this 9, remember we have 9 dimensions, this is the spread among the 8 organizations. So I gave you the score of the average. This is the spread, okay? So if you look at leadership, it goes from, 25 to 53, right? So that's the best and the worst, okay? So as you can see, there's also a lot of variability, right, among the organizations, as you can imagine, right? However, directionally, you would see that actually in Hong Kong, the lower score ones are the ones around innovation and learning, quality control, leadership, right? And higher ones are actually the ones around external orientation, around accountability, right? And around direction. So that's roughly, I would say, the state of affairs, right, in most of the organizations in Hong Kong today. Sort of my observations is around, look, the range of NGOs in Hong Kong are large, right, with lots of different culture, history, and backgrounds. However, if I were to make one statement, I would say that we are in great performance, good performance, but in rather mediocre, or may I even say so, poor health. I think that there are many efforts ongoing in every organization. In the last few years, I've heard so many organizations trying different things around culture, different things around innovation. Everyone talks about innovation. Everyone talks about the business model, sustainability. However, it is actually very, very difficult to think about a long-term focus on health because it's easy to get sidetracked, right, by short-term, fires and other things, right? Ultimately, it's around leadership, but it's not only at the top, right? I think it's across the entire organization. We just need a lot more leaders, right? When people talk about I'm here to be a manager, right? Do not talk about being a manager, right? I don't want more managers. I want more leaders, right? That's what we need. And more than ever, right? I do think that it's not a technical leadership. I totally agree with Rosanna when she said that I don't need more qualified people with more degrees and, more time in the classroom, right? We need more people who can change people's minds, right? To have a more positive attitude, to try more things, right? And that's around adaptive leadership, right? Rather than more technical leadership. So with that, I would close here, and I think we'll have a good discussion. Thank you very much.